to filter on in before we jump into things. Uh, Lauren, how you been? It's been a month since I saw you last.
It's been all right. It's been interesting times. Yeah, holidays went well.
Good, good.
Last time we did book club was pre-holidays, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
We were before. I think even like Hanukkah, which happens I think a little bit earlier in December.
So yeah, doing well. I got some books for Christmas.
Always
You
good.
know.
Always
Yep.
good. I I also got a couple of books for Christmas this year, which is not always the case. My brother picked up for me the first two like mega compilations of the Akira manga series.
Ooh, I haven't read that or seen it. It's like one of the classics that I
The
haven't gotten around to.
the movie is 100% worth watching. I have not yet cracked the spines on those manga, but I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, I love old school manga. So good. I have been doing some rereads of some of my favorites. Um, and I don't know, the aesthetic just takes me right back. I read uh, the first couple volumes of Full Metal Alchemist and
Oh yeah.
Inuyasha recently.
How is
I
the
have been
Inuyasha?
enjoying your Instagram stories that are part book, part manga. I'm like,
Nobody
I don't
wants
know
to
anything
hear,
about the manga, but this is great just for aesthetics.
yeah, nobody wants to hear about the manga. It's like totally not what I normally write about, but I'm really into it, so I'm just gonna write about it. I don't know if I write it, like people who are into it will come. That's kind of my approach. But
I mean, I think
in,
that's fair.
yeah, Inuyasha's good. It's a good mix of like fantasy and action and romance. Really pretty light on the romance. It's got like all of these like cool like demons and monsters, all like pretty inspired. It feels like very Japanese. Like they're all pretty inspired by like folklore and Shintoism and stuff like that. Sort of like some of Miyazaki's stuff is. Um, it's fun. It's got like kind of like creepy vibes too, sometimes mixed in with the humor.
I distinctly recall watching the anime there being some very spooky episodes just peppered in like between the high school romance drama.
Yeah, it's super
Yeah.
good. Like um, in the first and second volumes, there's like this hair demon, and she like controls like the dead hair on all these like thousands of skulls, and it like grapples people. It's like very, it's great. Like the like some of the
Oh,
body horror stuff is great, and then you have like centipede woman creatures and like evil spirits and stuff,
no, thank you. No, thank you. No,
the
no.
the hair
along
demon.
with like, oh, this cute boy with dog ears doesn't like me.
The hair demon is for sure one of Alex's favorites from the entire series. She is all about the hair demon.
Yeah. Uh, I'm. I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean, Sashomaru, you gotta love like a morally gray character, and he's really great.
Yeah, like I particularly enjoy when characters are kind of you can't quite tell where they stand. They seem to be working with the good guys, but it's like, do we know that though?
Yeah, it's hard to think of similar characters in other anime. I've been watching Hunter x Hunter, and so it kind of makes me think of Hisoka. So
Hmm.
like this kind of character that's like sometimes on the bad guy's side, sometimes on the good guy's side, really only cares about himself. Like you're like maybe they're okay.
I think Dragon Ball Z has Vegeta as a kind of similar, where like he starts out definitely being a bad guy, but then as he gets to know the main cast a little better, he becomes basically a big teddy bear that just has like, I don't know, it's like a teddy bear in a studded leather jacket where he's like, I'm tough and mean, and it's like, no, you're not. You're adorable.
Love a good redemption arc.
um Fofasi asks if the hair demon inspired the forest of hair. I'm pretty sure yes. I'm I think the hair demon in Inuyasha is also a Japanese mythology creature.
Yeah.
So I think everything kind of like spins back to that one point. But I think Alex's enjoyment of that as a concept comes from Inuyasha.
The reason I started rereading some of Inuyasha, well, one, my parents were like, get all this damn manga out of our house. Uh, and and two, the sequel is airing right now.
Oh yeah.
Following Yashahime, following their kids.
I'd almost completely forgotten about that. Oh, I need to check that out because I enjoyed the heck out of Inuyasha when I was growing up.
Same. Oh, staying up late, watching some Adult Swim.
Getting those like 2 a.m. tsunamis. Hi Tree. Hi Lost Limey. So we'll give it a couple more minutes before we jump right into things. I am really excited to talk about this book because man, it starts out feeling very distinctly like one kind of book and then it changes about a third of the way through. And I went from having read about a third of the book to having read all of the book in about a night.
Yeah.
It is a twisty turvy one. Don't worry, Fofasi, you're not the only one. Honestly, I think this past month was a lot for a lot of us. So that's partially why we picked a shorter book, was so that we could at least try to hit that point. And there's no shame in having not. There's zero shame in that. And hopefully tonight's discussion will be inspiration for people to go back and be like, oh my God, I need to read this for myself now.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons I recommended it is that it packs a hell of a punch for like 150 pages, which like there's such an art to writing novellas. You like, how do you fit in world building, character development, plot, make people feel something in so few amount of pages? It's, I think, really challenging. And I thought Becky Chambers did like a fantastic job.
100%. That's without question. I am all about everything she managed to pack into 140 pages. Is just a wild amount of space to get in as much as she did for exploring characters' psyches and also establishing like this is the world they live in.
Yeah, confession, I did not get a chance to read it this month, but I still want to because I still have it.
There's no shame. Book club is not about shame. It's about community and having a good time together. So no one jumped on my back the 3 times that I didn't finish the book, I think now. So there's no reason for any of us to start now. Gosh darn it.
Mm-hmm.
Much appreciated.
We're all here just to have fun.
Yeah.
In the spirit of loving books and reading.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had really thought I'd maybe have time to like get through it today and yesterday, but it just was not going to happen. There was nope.
Sometimes it's just how it goes.
Well, I've got lots of questions and thoughts. It's no worries.
Yeah, I will fully admit that I went from having read like 5 to 10 pages a night to reading the entire rest of the book this previous weekend. So I, yeah, yeah. Um, let's see. Tree says that USPS failed to deliver her copy. Someone in her town who does not know sent them a book for the holidays. Um, Glocken says, I rushed it in the last few days. It was suddenly, oh no, this is coming up Tuesday.
That's how I felt this
Yep.
weekend.
Same.
And Glocken says, stopping points, pages 31, 51, 95, end. Which I think for me, it was something closer to 51. And it's like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and oh dear. Um, all right. So we're just a little bit past 7. I think we've got everybody we're gonna get. So let's jump in. So first and foremost, Lauren, initial thoughts on your reread.
Um, I loved it just as much on a reread as I did on my initial read. I thought it was uh, fantastic still. And yeah.
I was really surprised by how much Becky managed to fit in 140 pages. It's really impressive. I don't At no point did I feel like the world was underexplored. Um, and maybe part of that is because we weren't dealing with the whole like planet that they were coming from. We were just dealing with, oh, well, these are the things you need to know in order to understand how our world is different from yours,
Yeah.
basically.
Any piece that was unexplored felt that way because the crew itself could not explore it. It felt like they thoroughly explored like their little corner of it. And if it felt like not enough was defined, the characters also felt that way.
Yeah,
So like it worked with the format really well.
particularly the entire sequence on Opera where they're supposed to like land and like the island's going to be there and they're going to go and they'll have a little bit of room to walk around, which won't be great, but there'll be water in all directions and they'll be able to explore the water and find whatever's out there, etc., etc. And they land and awful storms and then the sucker creatures, and then they're like, well, maybe this will clear up, maybe we can go explore, maybe this will clear up, maybe we can go explore. Like the amount of frustration she managed to bake into that whole sequence is just like, I felt like I was being denied the privilege of scientific exploration. Like I was, uh holy smokes.
Yeah. I read this the first time, I think at the beginning of like lockdown and stuff. And so I read the opera thing, like they were like trapped inside and they couldn't go outside. It was too dangerous. And they kept being like, maybe in a week, maybe in a couple weeks. And I remember feeling it like more than I guess I did this time because I knew what was going to happen, but also I've accepted my fate in a way that I didn't in like March or April. Um, but
Oh my god, I didn't even think about the parallels to our
yeah,
world in that. Oh man.
I was like reading it in April and being like,
Oh yeah, like I knew it felt really real and really difficult. I had not put together that that was why. I was, I was so caught up in the fiction.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think this came out like way before that, but it definitely tapped into something on accident.
Oof.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it almost makes you wonder if Becky Chambers has had to go through quarantine at some point in her life.
Mm. I
Just
think,
like,
yeah, both this book and uh, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet both deal with like being alone in space, being isolated, and having to go like long distances or long periods of time, just like a little tiny pod. I wonder if she likes backpacking.
It's entirely possible. It would
I don't
certainly
know.
make sense.
Yeah. Uh,
The way she describes unloading all of the gear from the shuttle, I think sounds very backpacking oriented. Where it's like, yeah, we only have a little bit of stuff, but look at how much stuff we managed to have in this teeny tiny space. It's so amazing. And it's like,
yeah.
I have for sure been on that camping trip before. I've definitely, you start unloading your backpack and you're like, oh, I forgot I even had some of these things. This is so cool.
Yeah, when she's describing a couple, I forget what planet it was, but like the sense of being like utterly alone, and like where if you go like hundreds of miles in any direction, there's not going to be any people, no civilization, no one to come get you. And I was like trying to think if I've had a similar experience, and like I like camping. I like the wilderness. Um, and I like really haven't. The closest I might have even maybe possibly come was Sharon and I's trip to Wadi Rum. That definitely came to mind. There's no desert planet here, but we went to uh, we went like glamping in a desert in Jordan, and you had to drive like I don't know 30-40 minutes in a jeep out into the middle of the desert. And like that might be the most isolated I've ever been in my life, and that's not very isolated. That's 45 minutes away from
the only other thing I could think of that might be similar but probably is not as big of a expanse would be like in Turkey at Pamukkale. But there were more people like there on that one like area, and then lots of nothing. Whereas like the desert is just like nobody.
Yeah.
Like just a few over there in a tent and then nothing.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had an experience quite like that. I've been camping, I've been out into wilderness by myself before, but I've never been even more than like a day's walk from civilization, so to speak, you know.
Yeah.
So it's to think of it in terms of like, and that's I think something she explores really nicely when they
Mhm.
first touch down on Acor, where Ariadne's talking about, yeah, it's kind of like camping, except you are completely self-reliant. There is no, you can't drive into town to pick up anything you forgot. You can't, you're stuck. You have what you have and that's it.
Yeah. It's wild to think that humans lived like that a lot. Like you only have to go back like 300 years to like, oh, we're just gonna set out on this sea voyage for 2 months, and we're gonna touch down somewhere, hopefully where we want to. Uh, and like, there's no one can get you. You can't contact anyone. There's no mail. There's like nothing like that kind of uh, being alone and self-reliance. Really hard for me to wrap my brain around, but future fiction of this universe and then in the past are pretty like human experiences. Um, that was really cool.
Glaucon is saying that so there's been multiple people talking about how this is reading this is like lockdown boogaloo. uh Glaucon comments Elena won her dice roll on a planet that left them stuck inside. And then Glaucon comments, the lack of sleep on Opera reminded me of that Battlestar Galactica episode where the enemies kept catching up to them such that they were only getting an hour of sleep at a time and slowly coming apart. And I think that's something else. I don't know if Becky put herself through sleep deprivation to write this novella or if it's just something she is familiar with, but that was holy smokes. I've done sleep deprivation a couple of times, usually under very high stress circumstances, and I tell you what, it's real accurate, like real accurate.
Mm.
Just like slowly becoming more and more irritable and slowly like feeling like your grip on reality is tenuous. It's
Yeah.
it's so awful. And I think I don't know about uh anybody in chat or you, Lauren, but like for me it was like, oh Lord, this is way too real.
Yeah. The whole opera thing, like, it really ratcheted up, I think, the tension that started with them not getting any messages. And like everything was like, cool, cool. And then they stopped receiving messages and then opera. And I was like, oh, what's going to happen? Yeah. It changed the tone quite a bit, I think.
There was a part of me that when the island on Opera wasn't there, I was like, what is this? Is this like a subterfuge thing? Did like someone sabotage the mission? Are we gonna
Mm.
find out that like a other government agency or foreign power was like, no, none for you? Like what could have caused this? I don't know. Uh, oh my gosh. I won't, since enough people in chat have not read the book, I'm going to opt not to spoil why they're not receiving messages, unless, Lauren, you think it's really important to tonight's conversation.
Uh, I,
There is for sure a question I want to ask of chat at large once
yeah.
we get there.
We can talk about soma forming, the changing the people to suit
Yeah.
the planets. I thought so. First off, I wanted to ask people if this made sense to them as like a solution, and then like, what did you think of sort of the flip of the typical sci-fi trope of terraforming, and how they decide not to attempt any kind of terraforming. One, because it's not practical, much easier to change the person to suit the environment, which, duh, that makes so much sense to me at least. And I think to tie into the ethics, like it's very, I think, like human hubris that all of our sci-fi is all like, oh, we got to terraform Mars, we got to like terraform this other planet and like conquer it and change the ecology like so inherently to make it suit us rather than like changing people to suit the environment. I thought when they were talking about it in the book, I was like, oh, yeah, that does make sense. That is more ethical. I'd never thought that much about the ethics of terraforming. Like, I mean, maybe a little bit, but unless they're eradicating like a sentient species, like you don't even, you're like, ah, who cares about that bacteria,
Yeah.
that plant that's not going to live anymore?
Well, it's when I think of terraforming historically in science fiction, it's always like, oh, well, it's just some rock and
Yeah.
nothing really lives there anyway, and so it's fine if we move in and just completely renovate the entire planet. That's who cares? And it's like scientifically speaking, that doesn't make a lot of sense, thing number one. And thing number two, even if you successfully accomplished that, like, how do you keep it that way? Because there's a reason why it never developed things like an atmosphere in the first place.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And also, yeah, I think also terraforming has implications of like humanity's like movement out of Earth and spreading like across at least the solar system. And that wasn't what this book was about, which
Yeah.
I also thought was interesting since that seems to be the assumed narrative of a lot of sci-fi. Um,
I mean, it kind of makes sense in a general scope because you can't really go exploring but so far without coming back to resupply. And so, if you're going to go further and further out, you have to have outposts and things further and further out. And it seems like in this universe, since they're so focused on not disturbing the local life, um, those outposts likely would have been space based ultimately. I will say I've got at least two people in chat who have talked about how they're fine being spoiled because they're still absolutely going to read the whole thing. Sharon, where are you at on that?
I am fine with being spoiled because I am also still going to read the book.
Okay, then there's something that Lauren and I both I think are very excited to talk about. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. I think the thing I enjoyed the most about the Soma forming was discussing like how neat it was to like have glittery skin when you're on the ice planet so that you can be seen easier, and how great it was to have like more rigid bones and stronger muscle structure so you were just like a big old hulking humanoid. And then when Ariadne's turned back into herself, all of a sudden it's like, oh, right, I'm just me. And how
Yeah.
that's almost depressing because it's like, well, but all my cool like superpowers though. Oh,
Yeah, that's another thing where I was like, how would I handle like that? Right? Like you're not just like the aging thing, because she talks a lot about um aging and the effects of that, and like seeing other people age even though it feels like you just uh you know woke up and no time's passed. I just turned 30 this past year, so I feel that. I'm like, I feel like I'm young, but like I'm not anymore. Like, and yeah, I don't know. I That would really throw me for a loop, having like my like body change so rapidly. I think it would, I don't know, it's hard to wrap my brain around. You can definitely change your self image, your ideas. Would be weird to go back, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, I feel like for myself kind of exploring the concept of being able to alter self and become something else is a very, I don't know, it's a very cyberpunk kind of
Mm.
thought process. And there's definitely, I think everybody's got those moments where like you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, if I could, I might change a couple of things. Or, you get frustrated because you're trying to haul milk into the house and you're like, this is more weight and annoying than I feel like it should be. Like I should just be like powering through this or something, and thinking about like if I could do those kinds of modifications to myself, would I? And what would it mean for me as a person? Like how changed would I be personality wise for these changes physically? And
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting to see like when they first land on Myriabilis, which is the planet where they're all like really really sturdy. That's the first planet where they're like, I don't really care about the news. Like,
Mm-hmm.
does it matter? It doesn't really matter, does it? And to the point where one of them is just working out. Like they just got out of sleep and it's like, well, time to hit the rowing machine. And it's like, really? That's like the first thing out of hypersleep and you're like, I'm gonna work up a sweat. Yeah. And I'm like, actually that kind of makes sense though, cuz if they're all if they're all rocking some major like muscle mass. They're probably all jacked up on testosterone. Like, well, yeah, you probably aren't going to care about the news. You probably are going to be like, I'm going to go hit the rowing machine and the news can wait until whenever because I don't care.
Yeah, the choice to not watch the news I thought was really interesting. Um,
Also relatable.
yeah, like mm, the whole thing about them like not being able to affect anything, and you know feeling like
That's
kind
more
of
quarantine vibes.
disjointed and helpless when it comes to that, and like kind of the throwing up hands and being like whatever, it's just depressing, cyclical, natural disasters and war. We're just going to do science over here. um Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to be said about like modern era politics and things like that, particularly pre-coronavirus, where I don't know about y'all, but like I wasn't watching the news and I was getting tidbits here and there, but a lot of that even I was like, oh, what am I going to do about this? Like am I going to take to the streets? Am I going to protest? Like those are options that are available to me. I can't really show up to city hall meetings because they seem to exclusively happen when I'm at work, but like
Yeah, I
what do
don't
you do?
know. It's I thought it was interesting, and especially once again the fact that like this world was very different than a lot of other sci-fi worlds where like uh there's no like galactic like government, there's no like united country of the world that like sent them out. um it's not Star Trek, right?
Right.
uh there's still like it seems wild that there would still be wars and instability and climate change they're dealing with and all of that other stuff. But I think it made it feel a little bit more real, a little bit less fantasy, I guess. Um,
Well, that was something that was commented on was like it was hard for governments and corporations and things like that to be all that focused on space exploration because how could they be when like things are already so awry on the planet itself? And I really, really liked the concept of we figured out how to do it, and that was to have public funded, like basically somebody in chat already said space Kickstarter. It was Lost Limey said space Kickstarter, and Glocken said pretty much. Um, and it's the concept of crowd-funded space exploration. I mean, we're exploring that a little bit right now because that's kind of how SpaceX was, if I recall correctly. I mean, that was hosted by a corporation, but then also publicly funded. So you've got all this money kind of pooling into one location, trying to take a little bit of the grip of the steering wheel for space exploration into the hands of everybody as opposed to just a few people. And I feel like if space exploration is really going to blow up, well, hopefully not literally, but like expand and become something really big and multinational and kind of a joint effort between the entire world, you almost have to have it be publicly funded and publicly gathered because I can't see, not for the next couple hundred years at the very least, enough of the world getting along to really make a like combined joint effort.
I maybe am a little bit more pessimistic. I think it'll be if space exploration happens in the next like 100 years, I think it's going to be uh, corporate or a combination of corporate and like government. Like we're already seeing that now, and even like some of uh, um, the some of the like experiments and stuff being done on the International Space Station have corporate sponsors.
It's true.
So I think this was a very rosy image of like the best that space travel and exploration could be, like the best like vision path for the future,
That's
driven
fair.
by ethics and science and a love of knowledge for knowledge's sake and stuff like that. It's going to be corporate. That's kind of a bummer, but
I did.
that's my take.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Um, because at the very least, right now, if you look at where all the money is held, It's by corporations and owners of those corporations. Like it's just the reality of the I'm gonna allow that. Lost Limey got almost blocked for saying apartheid, which is or I'm sorry, apartheid. I always pronounce that wrong because that's apparently a blocked word in the moderator. Jumping into chat real quick. Lost Slimy is talking about transhumanism is definitely a big deal in science fiction right now. Tree says when we were talking about looking in the mirror and being like, oh, I'm just me again, or looking in the mirror and seeing your mom or dad, which is it's definitely one that's a struggle as you get older. I had a moment where I looked in the mirror recently and I was like, oh, that's a very my father's face kind of. Ooh, well, time to go somewhere else, do something else. Tree says, I never watch the news. I read the news so I can control what comes in. I think that's absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. Glocken says, with wannabe Tony Stark at the helm, I don't trust SpaceX to fulfill the principles of community-supported space exploration. I think that's also very fair. And that's when Lost Limey said, you mean the son of an apartheid emerald mine owner might not have a strong sense of ethics? All right, there's... Tree, you must have known that was a blocked word. Because Tree out of nowhere is just like, Ivanhoe. And it was like, no, you're not allowed to say Ivanhoe. I'm like, yes, you are. It's Ivanhoe. Why are we blocking book titles? What's happening here? This is book club, darn it. Yeah, I think that's 100% fair. Fofasi says, I wonder if it's comparable to being in full character cosplay and then you take all the makeup off and just have to be you.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like I don't know, this isn't quite the same, but the post-con blues, like you spend a whole weekend with like really excited with like people that you love doing things that you love, and no, should I is it too much, Sharon? Like you get to be a version of yourself that like I don't know, I really enjoy, like super nerding out, and then you have to like go back to work on Monday and like assume this, I don't know,
drudgery.
Yeah.
Whoa. Drudgery and whoa.
I think as somebody who doesn't cosplay or I don't know, or like wear a lot of like makeup or do anything like that, that's what it makes me think of, is like that, like back to reality.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's even worse when you are doing things like running a booth or having panels, because it's like here in this space, I'm like Mr. Cool Guy, like come check out my booth, come check out my stuff. And then I go back to work and they're like, hey, the toner exploded in the printer. Can you look at that? And I'm like, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll bring a vacuum.
Why y'all gotta make me sad?
I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to talk about.
I think given that people are comfortable getting spoiled, for those of us that finished the book, I think the number one thing is the question at the end. After they find out that Earth got hit by a magnetic storm and all electronics are wiped out, no more electricity of any kind on the entire planet, and Lockheed 5 goes back and is like, hey, looks like the lights are out down there, but we're gonna land and check it out, and our communicator should work, so we'll be reaching out tomorrow. And then you never hear from them again. Like that final question at the end of the book, do you continue exploring and finding new information because you're close enough to head to another planet that would be likely habitable by humans? Or do you turn back and try to, I guess, hope that your situation turns out differently than Lockheed Five's and that you'll be able to help and live with humanity, but it won't be the same humanity you grew up with because they're decades gone by this point. What do you do?
I go back. I don't know. I I once again, well, I don't want to be totally silly, but um, I've been stuck in a house with my roommates for quite a while now. I would definitely want to interact with other people. I would want to like stay still and invest in a place and help build and like have those other like social connections. I mean, I guess science and exploration and the seeking of knowledge is uh, like that is really alluring, but I don't think going back to Earth is has any less of those. Like it's now full of problems that need scientific solutions. Like there's just as much innovation and discovery and invention and science to be had there. I don't know. I think I think community would draw me back. About about you?
I think that's fair. I think it's I struggle with it a lot because uh Glocken says also Lockheed 5 had some hull damage of some sort that was likely bad luck that Lockheed 6 wouldn't deal with. And I'm less certain on that because there's a whole network of like garbage that floats in space in orbit around Earth right now. And maybe that's changed in their time. Maybe. But it seemed to me like there's a distinct possibility that flying back, you may not even get to land. You may very well perish in the effort. Um, Fofesi asks if it takes 15 years to travel back, how old are these people living? And they're put into a sort of stasis between planets. And so they're in kind of their 20s to begin with. And then they're flying light years to reach planet to planet. Um, Lost Limey points out, plus the sucker creatures on the hull. I think, though, for the sucker creatures, they checked the hull at Votum,
Mm-hmm.
uh, where they found out that they were like, ah. So
Yeah.
I think I think I'd wind up in a situation similar to theirs where I'm like, I don't think I'm qualified to make this decision. um, but I don't know, like I feel like if I had to make that call, I feel like I would turn back as well. Um, Lost Limey commented that he would turn back because that was the mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, I feel like there's not a lot of sense in me traveling to a world where I can potentially live out the rest of my days in scientific exploration, but also potentially ruin the habitat of the creatures that live on that planet. Because who knows what I'm bringing with me. And I can't live in the Eva suits the whole time. At some point, those things are going to break down. At some point, the ship's going to break down.
Yeah.
So I think I would go back largely because it's not just within the spirit of the mission to keep the contact limited, but because if there's a chance that I make it back to surface and can be of use to people there, then it's a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah. I think I would want to take that risk as well.
Trees. Oh,
I
go ahead.
looked up magnetic or it was magnetic storms.
I can't recall exactly. It was like 2 a.m. by the time I got to that part of the book.
I so I looked it up, and yeah, they're a real thing, and they can really mess us up. In case you wanted something else to be anxious about, um, uh, oh gosh, there's uh, it
Glaucon has
happened
it.
in Quebec in 1989, and it took out like a whole bunch of the power grid and structure in Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened in during the Vietnam War and caused like a bunch of mines to go off,
Mm-hmm.
and it messed up a bunch of telegraph systems in 1859. Anyway, I was like reading about it because I was like, oh my god, is this gonna happen? So
Yeah, it's a geomagnetic storm, is
yeah.
what Glaucon says, but it was worldwide. And my understanding is that that is a potential risk. Solar flares are a potential risk. And then on top of both of those, there's a chance that the entire Earth's polar like magnetic field will invert so that north will be south and south will be north. And
I vaguely recall that from like a 2 a.m. like Discovery Channel thing.
it's like, what? Like, really?
Mm-hmm. Also, Josh, as you mentioned, all the garbage around Earth from all the satellites that we've shot up there is a real problem because it's breaking into smaller and smaller pieces and becoming an interference. And I watched again like a 2 a.m. Discovery documentary about how we could potentially slowly be making like kind of like a cage for ourselves out of all of the trash that we're ejecting at like
Yep.
we're putting into space around us.
Well, and there's been, as I understand it, there's what it costs to send something up to do essentially capture and release or capture and burn up an atmosphere is so expensive that it's really, really difficult for anyone to justify it from a financial perspective up until the point where it's like, yeah, but we can't get up there anymore. So we got to do something.
So many things to worry about.
I think there's at least one European country that's already started working on the problem. They sent up I believe it was a robot that they shot into space that's literally going to just grab things and then push them towards Earth so that they have a decaying orbit. So that they'll burn up on re-entry.
There are just a couple of other things that I wanted to mention. I am a big classics nerd, and so the name like Ariadne really stood out to me, and I was wondering if anyone else like saw that name and was like, and thought anything about it in the myth of Ariadne. Anyway,
I did not put that particular one and one together.
I don't think it's huge, but she is a princess on Crete, helps Theseus find his way through the labyrinth to the Minotaur and all that. And then he's like, oh, I'll marry you.
Oh.
And they go on a voyage and they stop at Naxos. Yeah, anyway, Greek island. And she falls asleep and he abandons her there. and she wakes up and she's stranded and doesn't know why or whatever. But Journey falling asleep, stranded. Hmm. But then she marries Dionysus, and it all turns out okay in the end. But I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, I had not put that together, but I am familiar with that story, and I think that is 100% intentional on Becky Chambers' part. It sounds very intentional. I really, really enjoyed how they were as a unit, very like joined together.
mm,
There's strong polycule vibes there,
yeah, definitely. Uh,
which I think,
I like how casual and um, healthy and like matter of fact the poly rep was. I don't know. I It was very well done, I thought, and
well,
not used as a source of like conflict for like they had conflicts. You know, Elena was kind of overbearing, and Jack was always late and like um, quick to anger in opera and stuff. But the interpersonal relations were not really like the romance was not really a source of conflict, which I liked. That's an easy thing to do. It's easy to have like interpersonal relationships be the source of conflict.
yeah. Well, and you kind of get the impression that Jack and Elena are both anxious. Like they both have anxieties, but they both handle them in very, very different ways.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
The when Elena came in on opera and was like, "We need to do a full systems check," like in the middle of the night, like wakes her up. I was like, "Yeah," like that kind of like sleep deprived middle of the night. Like I have to reorganize my closet. Very,
uh huh.
I was
Uh-huh.
like, yes, yes, definitely.
I think everybody in chat's probably been there in at least one occasion. Um, all right. So I think we've got a lot still to talk about. But I want to get through I want to get through the rest of this. So let's look at what we've got coming up. And if we have further things to discuss, we've always got the Discord, which I've got for anyone who's not already on the Discord. I haven't seen anybody in chat I don't recognize. We have got the link down there in the bottom left. So coming up next month, starting meow, is Ali Brosh's Hyperbole and a Half, which I've got the image for the book up on screen now, and her art style is very distinct art style.
It always makes me so happy to see. I love her stuff so much.
I love how she spends no time at all drawing herself. That is like, I threw this together. This took me like a minute. But the dog, like, the detail on the dog is so good.
Oh, oh.
Oh my God.
Her drawings of dogs are so pure.
They're so pure. The bug eyes. Oh,
I
so
know that dog. I've seen that dog. I know what is this dog. So good.
I used to read a lot of Hyperbole and a Half, her blog. So I'm
Mhm.
very excited to read the book, which I suspect is going to be a lot of stuff I'm familiar with and hopefully a little bit of stuff I'm not. Um, Simple Dog. That's right, Lost Limey.
Mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm.
so excited. I think honestly, this will be another kind of quick and easy one. So hopefully that'll make things easy for those of you who weren't able to get into To Be Taught If Fortunate. This will be a good option for like breeze through this, breeze through To Be Taught If Fortunate, and then feel really accomplished coming in on February. Um,
Good winter activities,
yeah,
multiple books.
yeah. Um, So I think those of us who ordered it through Alpha Comics, I think the copies are already in. So you can pick them up at your leisure. And then I'm looking at calendar. That's right. Uh, we were going to potentially have a conversation, the three of us, about whether we were going to do next book club on the 9th or the 23rd next month. And we did not do this thing. And I think that's at least mostly my fault, because I would have been the one to be like, "Hey, we should figure this out." And then we didn't. Uh so what are the two of you feeling for next month? You want to give it a little more time since things have been kind of wild lately? Or do you want to give it a little less time because it's going to be a couple of, or it's a shorter book, and then for those of us that weren't caught up, it is another also shorter book.
I would give a little more time, but that's just me. It's been a time. I want to pack in a little cushion, but I can also be swayed, so
I mean, I'm good with more time. Honestly, I can be swayed very easily because I do not have super strong feelings one way or the other on this one.
I'm good with more time. That either way is fine with me.
Okay. Well, let's just call it more time. So we will next be meeting on the 23rd to discuss Hyperbole and a Half, which brings us around to one of my favorite moments of the book club evening, which is our nominees for next book club's book. So I think we had a quick discussion pre-stream, and all of us are feeling low on inspiration right now. But I know Lauren's always good for at least a book or two. But we were talking about potentially doing. We had talked about at one point doing classics of sci-fi and fantasy and kind of exploring some of those things. And I think now is the time when we're low on inspiration. That's the perfect time to be like, let's revisit stuff from olden times and go from there. Um, I am going to nominate that Jules Verne book where they make a cannon that's going to shoot people at the moon, because I've never read it and it sounds amazing. And I've enjoyed the Jules Verne I've read before from a purely like science is magical. What is this? But I'm going to look up the title to that. Lauren, what do you have for us?
All right. So I've got two suggestions. Um, one I've read and one I haven't. So this is The Left Hand of Darkness, written by Ursula K. Le Guin. So classic sci-fi written by a woman. It won the Hugo and the Nebula Awards. And I've got my description up here. This is one I haven't read. The Left Hand of Darkness tells the story of a lone human emissary to Winter, an alien world whose inhabitants can choose and change their gender. His goal is to facilitate Winter's inclusion into a growing intergalactic civilization. But to do so, he must bridge the gulf between his own views and those of the completely dissimilar culture that he encounters. So it's a lot on society, human emotion, and gender roles, all of that.
Oh.
And the other one, if you want me to, or Sharon, do you want to go? And then I can go.
I don't have any recommendations at this time. But there's one in chat, I see. Which I believe is I think you've read This Is How You Lose the Time War. Lauren, have you? Yeah. That one is recommended in chat by Lost Amy.
Yeah, that one's really good. It's another novella.
Said very, very sensibly, because February is a short month. What about another novella?
This makes perfect sense. I'm literally just like typing things Uh, let's see. Okay, so I've got The Left Hand of Darkness, right, by Ursula Le Guin. And
Yep.
then From the Earth to the Moon is the title of the Jules Verne book. And then This Is How You Lose the Time War, which do we have it? Do we have the author on that one? I can look it up if not. That's fine.
Oh, it's like Amal E. Moshar and oh gosh, what's his name? It's two authors.
Oh, somebody recommended Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's a classic.
That is a classic. And with
Has anybody read Ringworld? That was going to be my other suggestion.
Ooh, I think. Oh, have I read Ringworld?
I feel like it's
I'm trying to remember.
an underappreciated one. Also, speaking of classics, if anybody's ever read Rendezvous with Rama, it had very similar vibes to Be Taught If Fortunate.
Hmm.
Like this guy, and he leads an expedition, and they encounter like this alien artifact, and they like explore it, and it's very fantastical. And there's lots of like, what's the ethical thing to do? What's my responsibility to like humanity? And like Earth's far enough away that like he's the final decider. It's pretty cool.
That sounds awesome. I'm about that.
Yeah, I think it's Arthur C. Clarke. Yeah.
That sounds right. Yep.
It's not like exactly the same. I think for some reason, maybe some of similar themes or something reminded me of Be Taught If Fortunate.
That makes sense. Okay, I've got room for a grand total of one more book. So hopefully folks in chat will help us out with that. Lost Slimy says Ringworld is Larry Niven, right?
Yeah.
Grab that. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot to discuss, not just because some of us haven't gotten to read the book yet, but also because we didn't have enough time to get into. It is amazing to me that we can read something like Guards, which I think is a little bit over twice as many pages, and feel like we had a really good, really comprehensive conversation in about an hour. And we read To Be Taught If Fortunate, and there's just so many big questions that are part of it that it's like I don't know how long you would have to make book club to have enough time to really explore the whole thing.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things about like really, one of the best things about like really successful sci-fi, I think, is that it asks really big, complex questions. I was reading some reviews of the book, and there were some like poorly rated reviews, and with my favorites, I get a little defensive. I'm like, you don't understand. But no, everyone's opinions are valid on this. But people were like, oh, it's kind of boring. They didn't really do anything. There's no like action. I don't understand.
But it doesn't. We don't need laser gun fights in every piece of sci-fi, you guys. It's not. It's not necessary. Come on, y'all. Oh, Fofacey's got our final nominee. Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman.
Ooh, I haven't read that one.
That's not one I've read either, and I am someone who has been traveling in just the right circles to constantly hear about Neil Gaiman and how amazing he is, and have never read one of his books. So perhaps this will change my perspective. I'm writing notes, so I don't see faces right now, but I heard a kind of kind of noise.
American Gods is really, really good.
Gluckin, in response to "we don't need laser gun fights in every piece of sci-fi," says, "Wait, we don't? To Be Taught If Fortunate might have had an extra dimension with laser gun fights." Oh my word. All right. I think that's what we've got for tonight. unless we've got any closing thoughts.
I'm looking forward to reading the book.
Yay!
Very much.
I really think you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have a really great time with it because it's a wonderful exploration. I'll be intrigued to see what your experience with it is like with the spoilers, because I definitely got blindsided by that as much as the science team themselves. And so you'll be like, "Oh, base command stopped communicating, huh? Very interesting."
Yeah, I feel like there's still so much to be gained though. Like it's written so like beautifully. I don't know.
Well, and there is a ton of stuff that we didn't even scratch the surface of during this conversation. In fact, a couple of conversations I would love to have in Discord over the course of the next couple weeks would be like, how do you feel about the morals, the ethics of traveling to alien worlds and potentially being harmful to their environment purely in the name of understanding other species better so that we can be less harmful to them in the future? Like what, like how do you deal with that? How,
Yeah.
like, is it worth it? Is it really, like, is that sacrifice something that's valuable? So yeah, let's absolutely have some conversations in the book club channel on Discord, because there's so much we didn't get to talk about that I definitely want to talk about still. But let's go ahead and wrap it up for now. So Sharon, what do you want to plug tonight?
Well, I don't know if we're plugging anything officially yet, but like Goblins
Do
and
it.
Growlers is working on some real great, real dumb projects, and I'm excited about them. So get excited.
Well, you just did some art for something that I think we're safe to plug, right?
Did I? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The second one-page dungeon compendium is impending. It's an
Impending.
impending compendium.
I love that turn of phrase.
Mhm. Yeah, I can show the cover art too.
Oh yes, please,
Somewhere.
please do.
Where did yeah. Here it is. Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah.
That'll be the cover of our next
Looks so good.
Lord, that looks so cool.
We've
I
got
like the floor. The floor looks great, Sharon.
oh, thank you. We've got little items from all of the adventures that the goblins wrote over the past year. So one of the items from one of Josh's stories is right here. Here's some stuff from Alon's stories, a couple things of Brandon's, some of my stuff, some of Liz's stuff, all in sort of a choose your own adventure, like point and click looking weird little room.
I'm so excited. We have a little bit of work left to do on that before it actually gets shipped off to the publisher, or not the publisher, but the printer. But we're so close. We're so close. I'm so excited. Lauren, what would you like to plug tonight?
I don't really have anything to plug. Other than
manga. Your manga stories.
Yes.
Other than my my Instagram, where I review sci-fi, fantasy, and romance, and now manga. I got a I guess I'll plug for ethical manga consumption. I got a Shonen Jump subscription, a digital subscription. It's only $1.99, and you can read as much Shonen Jump manga as you want. So it's a really good way to pay for the art that you consume. So
that's awesome.
Trying to be better in the new year. And I'm reading through all of My Hero Academia right now.
Ooh. And that's a feminist reading list on Instagram, right? Awesome. Okay. So yes, if you're not already following Lauren, please go follow Lauren, because She's awesome and needs support because support is what helps us grow. All right.
Like
Uh,
happy plants.
Happy plants. Things I have to plug. As always, there is the Goblins and Growlers Patreon. Um, a lot of the stuff that we do, like being able to print the one page dungeon volume 2 and create an awesome book out of that and be able to compensate people like Sharon and Liz and for the Feast of Excursa, we had a third artist come on.
Third and fourth, we
Oh,
had two other artists.
oh my word, I didn't even think about the fourth. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we had Nicole and Moral.
that's it's honestly it's so cool to be able to do stuff like that. So you all supporting us being able to do stuff like that is the only reason we can, because otherwise we wouldn't have the time and the power and the ability because all of us have bills to pay. uh, so for anyone who's already on the Patreon, thank you so much. If you're not on the Patreon yet, patreon.com/goblinsgrowlers, check it out. Every little bit helps. I know it sounds a little cheesy to say it like that, but that really is how it works. We've got a bunch of people who support us at the $1 level, and that means a lot to us because it's support at every level that helps us to achieve what we achieve on a regular basis.
They all have our undying love.
Thank you. Uh, I think I'm gonna leave it at that because everybody in chat is already listening to Quid Pro Roll. I'm certain because I know like 90% of the names are always on all of the Quid Pro Roll chats anytime they happen in Discord. If you're not already on the Discord, get on the Discord because we're going to talk about more book club stuff on there in the book club channel, particularly ethics questions. There is, Lost Limey points out, there is a Minecraft server on the Patreon as well at the $5 level. That is correct. We have two, actually. We've got a Java Minecraft server and a Bedrock Minecraft server, and both are now populated with all kinds of things. So definitely check it out. I think that's everything I've got for tonight. If the two of you are feeling good about things, then I think let's call it a night.
Been really fun, as always.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and being part of chat. And we will see you on the 23rd for next book club to discuss Hyperbole and a Half. Take care, y'all.